It's a combination, it sounds to me, of the optics of strength, something that we would call probably comms in modern day speak. So Donald Trump, as you talked about in America, a huge person of strength and determination through those executive orders, as you said, but also someone that can identify the political crossroads or be the outsider that you talked about. Disraeli was the outsider. Liz Truss was arguably the outsider, wanting to change the status
Yeah, yeah,
quo,
yeah.
but didn't have the comms. Does Kemi Badenoch have? Well, and Thatcher, you said, also was someone that was seen to be from the outside, even though when we had that uni-party system, we've now got more than a uni-party system. We've got Nigel Farage, who seems to be that person that's a good comms guy, articulating strength, that's taking from the Donald Trump playbook from time to time, and has hit upon a cause where the public really do want change. They voted for Labour for change because they wanted to get rid of the Tories of the past that had failed to become or continue or failed ever to be Tory Conservative, perhaps under that 14 years. Does Kemi seize that mantle? Can she be that communicator? Can she tap into that cause, or is it all down to Nigel now?
Well, let's try and understand more broadly. Again, unpicking that favourite word of people inside politics, it suggests they grew up doing needlework, which I think in general is not true. But let's start unpicking a few of those things. What is special about Donald? What is special about Donald is two things, it seems to me. On the one hand, he is brilliant at seizing the popular mood and articulating it and dramatizing it. The idea, you've kept using the word comms. Now, this is something that's very much thrown at the new right by the old left in the term of denunciation. The idea, for example, that it's only because Nigel talks about immigration that the people care about immigration. This, of course, is nonsense. The reason that Nigel is so effective, or indeed anybody else, Robert Jenrick and so on the subject of immigration, is that it's a bleeding wound. It's an unhealed sore. And it's something that's got worse and worse because following Powell and 1968 and all the rest of it, the establishment took the decision it was too difficult to talk about. So, of course, it's festered and festered and festered. When you get somebody who, A, dares to break that rule of omerta, that rule of silence, and talk about it, of course, everybody jumps up. And when they do it effectively and in proper language, they jump up even more, as we're seeing. Now, Donald is brilliant at doing that. There's also, he's got another quality, which we have not yet seen in any British politician, I would argue, since Tony Blair or Margaret Thatcher. That is the ability to do what they say they will do. I mean, Donald has got a genuine monarchical quality, because it's all very well to sign a document and have a very grand signature, a flamboyant signature. It's why Donald was so satisfied to get that letter from King Charles. It wasn't, if you may remember, Keir Starmer virtually on bended knee offering a subordinate prince's letter to the great emperor. It was like a scene out of Roman history. Immediately Trump pointing to the signature, great signature, like his own. But the point is, whereas the signature of King Charles has frankly no effect whatever, the signature of Donald Trump has shown really does have an effect. When Trump said, I will close the border, do you know what? He closed the border. He's again this extraordinary disruptor. Look at the events of the last day or two in the Middle East. A problem that seemed absolutely intractable. In his first term, it was one of the extraordinary achievements, I think the only extraordinary achievement of his first term, the so-called Abraham Accords, which began the beginnings of normalization of relations between Israel and, of course, 100% dictatorial Arab states, where, in other words, the state has got control of Islamic radicalism and whatever, like Saudi Arabia and all the rest of it, the Gulf states, and so on. But Donald, again, as disruptor, has shown that he can actually do things. Margaret Thatcher did what she said she would do. And we've lost sight of that in our politics. We've had generations now of politicians, mainly Conservative, but now with Keir Starmer and Labour, who have talked big. Again, let's go back to Theodore Roosevelt, that marvelous statement. Roosevelt, talk quietly and carry a big stick. Instead, like Boris, the typical example, old bombastic Boris, you yell for the housetops and you carry a broken twig. Any prime minister, any incoming prime minister that is going to do something about Britain's terminal decline, and remember, it was exactly in the 1970s, exactly the same. And the Times quoted today from the Wall Street Journal on Britain in 1975 as in terminal decline. You could write precisely the same article now. What got us out was a disruptor politician, was somebody who dared to do things, who dared to face down the Heseltines of this world, dared to face down the Pattons, dared to do the 365 economists, dared to do something and did it. Do I see this in Kemi? I think there is an element that she could do it. In other words, she is a mold breaker. I think this would be one of the reasons that Michael and others that I know in the Conservative Party saw great political talent there. But there's something else. You don't just need the kind of character, you need something else. You need a will. She may have that. But above all, you need a terrifying appetite for work. And Trump is surprisingly hard-working. And he's got people round him whom he trusts who are even harder working. And I'm afraid one of the general charges against Kemi is of laziness. You can't have that. Gripping the machinery of politics is a 24-hour-a-day activity. It's why Thatcherite, it's why these people who are so great so often go mad. There's an element, in order to seize that machine, which we now know that, the blob will be viciously against any attempt from the right at bringing it under control or undercutting its power. It will require the rarest of qualities. Again, the office of a British Prime Minister is neo-monarchical. And the way the Constitution evolved from Robert Walpole onwards at the beginning of the 18th century, the Prime Minister is a kind of king. We've got two kings. We've got the nominal king, we've got King Charles at the moment, but we've got the real king who actually embodies all the powers of the royal prerogative as well as the ability to control Parliament. But what it's an extraordinary task. You've got to be able to manage your party. And Kemi has little parliamentary experience. Again, Nigel Farage has virtually none and has shown complete indifference to the processes of Parliament. But you've got to be able to manage a parliamentary party. You've got to be able to represent Britain. You've got to have that representative monarchical role. You've got to have that monarchical instinct by which you pick problems up by the scruff of the neck and do something about them. And you've got to control the machinery of government. It's an astonishing range of demands, which is why there are so few really good prime ministers. It demands the rarest of human qualities. And nowadays, of course, the kind of people who embody that range of qualities normally go into high international business because it offers these extraordinary rewards. I mean, remember, in the 19th century, when you sat in the chair of the foreign secretary, you were one of the 2 or 3 most powerful people in the world. You had that immense satisfaction. A Palmerston or a Castlereagh in the earlier 19th century at the Congress of Vienna. He disposes of the fortunes of Europe. Now, of course, we've had David Lammy sitting in that chair. As the measure of the decline of Britain, we now have Lammy wearing the robes of office of a Lord Chancellor and stepping in the footsteps of Sir Thomas More and Cardinal Wolsey. And all you can do is lament the fall of greatness.